Hey everybody, welcome to Adapter Parish, episode 73, Flowers in the Attic. Now, before we lock ourselves in with the Dollengangers, let's talk about our next episode. So a few months ago, we looked at the Thomas Crown Affair. We looked at the original, we looked at the remake, and it turns out there is a little left in the bottom of the super cool 60s heist movie barrel. This time, we're going across the pond with 1969's The Italian Job, starring Michael Caine and 3 Mini Coopers, and its 2003 remake starring Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron, and 3 Mini Coopers. Will they be cool enough, 60s enough, heisty enough? Find out in 2 weeks on Tuesday, August 25th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. One last thing before we get started. For those of you that know Flowers in the Attic, you betcha this episode's going to have a content warning. This kind of gives everything away, but this episode is going to deal with, among other things, child abuse, child death, incest, and rape. If you feel this doesn't sound like the episode for you, we look forward to seeing you next time. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 73, Flowers in the Attic. Hello, and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw, and today we will be talking about flowers in the attic.
So I've been waiting to ask you this question for us to do this episode. So I finished reading the book like a week ago, and then we watched the movies, and now we're ready to record. And I have this question that I've been holding on to that I wanted to ask you here at the beginning.
Yeah.
What the fuck did I read? What the fuck is this book?
I don't know what to tell you. Over 85 million copies sold.
Oh, geez, I'm just going to skip straight to the back of the book right here because I want to get into this. This is it's all in caps. This is the extraordinary novel that has captured millions in its spell all across America and around the world. It went from all caps, so I'm going to say it a little quieter. All across America and around the world, millions of readers have been captivated by this strange, dark, terrifying tale of passion and peril in the lives of 4 innocent children locked away from the world by a selfish mother. I'm leaning into the ambiguity they're putting here. Flowers in the Attic is the novel that launched the extraordinary career of V.C. Andrews, winning her an immediate and fiercely devoted worldwide following. Today there are more than 85 million copies of her book in print.
Yes. We were just sitting around the house the other day. I think we might have been, I don't know, giving the baby a bath or something. We were not talking about Flowers in the Attic. And Jeremy just turned to me apropos of nothing and goes, "That book is sick."
It's a fucked up book.
I mean,
and not for the reasons for the people that know Flowers in the Attic and know what we're going to talk about. I didn't say that for the reasons you might think.
Everyone who is listening right now, everyone who is within the sound of my voice, if you are driving, pull over because I'm going to ask you to do something and I want you to be safe. If you first read or encountered this book because it was being passed around on the playground in your middle school, please raise your hand.
There's a lot. There's a lot of you. There's a lot of you.
It's a lot of you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it.
What were you hoping to accomplish with that little exercise right there?
As I did it, I thought, what am I hoping to accomplish here? And
that's a hell of a way to answer my question.
I couldn't answer it.
I'll answer your question with a question that I will also pose to myself that is your question.
It's been a long week.
How old are you? How old am I? Goodbye. What is this book?
So, V.C. Andrews, I am given to understand, I don't know if you had any research on her.
I mean, there's not much of anything. She's this lady.
My understanding is she had a very hard life. She, I believe, asserted that this book was semi-autobiographical.
No, apparently not.
She said it was, but it wasn't.
Right, of course it wasn't.
But She said it was, or that it like had happened to someone in her family.
No, it was like a doctor that someone met. It was
Right.
like she met a doctor and they said that they had to hide in an attic for a number of years to get an inheritance.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like autobiographical. It was, oh, I met a person who said that it happened to them.
Yeah.
But like that was other people saying it later. It's all like he said, she said.
And my understanding is she was like ill for a number of years, like she couldn't walk. And so she was she felt like unhappy with her life, and writing was kind of her outlet or her escape. You know, if she had lived today, she probably would have written like really sexy fan fiction. But instead she wrote weird incest novels about kids locked in an attic. What can I tell you? Okay. Should we get into the plot?
I mean, yeah, like I actually think this is going to be pretty quick. Go ahead.
Okay. So, the Dollenganger family is a perfect family of an older boy, Chris, younger sister, Kathy, and then two little twins, adorable blonde children, Carrie and Corey, a boy and a girl. And they have two attractive parents, Chris and Corinne. They're all very blonde. They live in the suburbs in the 50s, and they're just the perfect family. The neighbors call them the Dresden Dolls.
And that was a delight for me in the first couple of pages to find out that that's in part where that came from. Like it was one of those things where I read it and I was like, oh, Dresden Dolls, holy shit. And I looked it up, and apparently someone asked Amanda Palmer, and like she didn't come right out and say, yes, I got it from Flowers in the Attic. I think she played coy with it. She was like, oh, well, Dresden was like, there's so many things that happened in Dresden and it was so evocative. I'm like, no, you fucking got it from Flowers in the Attic. What are you talking about?
Amanda Palmer and I are like of an age. She probably read it passed around the playground in middle school as well.
And it sounds like I have something against Amanda Palmer. I have nothing against Amanda Palmer.
No. She's not getting divorced from Neil Gaiman. They're just socially distancing on different continents right now. They need a break from each other.
I have no problem with the two of them.
It's fine.
If anyone hasn't listened to An Evening with Amanda Palmer and Neil Gaiman, it is a fucking treat, and you should. It's great. They're great.
Cool. Okay. One evening when Kathy is about 12 or 13 and Chris is about 15 and the twins are like 7, it is Daddy Dollenganger's birthday, and they've got a fancy party all set up, and they're just waiting for him to come home.
There were people there.
There were people there. Everyone's all dressed up. They've got balloons, gifts, cake, what have you. And tragically, there's a knock on the door, and in an excruciatingly long speech, the policeman delivers the news that he's been killed in a car accident.
I've read lots of books where people talk the way people talk, and I've read lots of books where people don't talk the way people talk.
No one in this book talks the way any human being has ever talked.
But it's not like, for me, it wasn't in a fun way.
Yeah, no. It's like in a way of maybe someone that's lived in an attic for many years and forgot how people talk.
Yeah. Is that why you think it was autobiographical?
Maybe a bit. There's a lot of like for. Did you notice that?
For?
Like, I won't do that, for I don't want to.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
in that
yeah,
sense,
yeah, yeah.
like nobody talks like that.
It's very heightened. It's very heightened and
heightened.
very proper. It's this kind of thing where like, oh, it's just like the 50s, but it makes you think that it's, like Victorian England or something like
Yeah.
that. It's very, very haughty language.
Yeah. But anyway, the state trooper comes in and delivers a long speech about defensive driving, and
Because the dad is dead.
he's dead. And come to find out that they were living beyond their means, and the repo men are coming to take everything away, and they don't have any money, and they have to give up their house and go and live with Corinne's parents, from whom she has been estranged these many years.
But why?
For a thing she did that made them angry.
Oh, I see. I have no desire to know what that thing is. I'm sure I don't care if it's revealed to me.
We'll find out momentarily. And she tells them that her parents are very, 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 very rich, and they live in a huge house, and she just needs to worm her way back into her parents' affections, and her father, who is dying, will write her back into the will, and they'll be rich beyond the dreams of avarice.
Can
and
you say
everything will be okay?
I'm sorry, can you say dying again, but try to put quotes around it with your inflections?
Dying.
That was really good. Go on.
We've been watching this series on the Smithsonian Channel called Aerial America, which was from about 10 years ago, and it's basically just every single state they went around with a helicopter and looked at, for some reason, prisons, Civil War battlefields, and amusement parks.
I'm pretty sure we're going to do an entire Adapter Parish Plus episode. By the way, we're on Patreon. We're going to do an entire Adapter Parish Plus episode just about Aerial America, but I think we can do like a little 1 or 2 minute mini episode here. Can I go over a couple of things really quickly?
Yeah.
So Rhode Island gets its own episode, but Maryland and Delaware get a combined episode because apparently there's more to talk about in Rhode Island than Maryland and Delaware.
Yeah.
Anytime you talk about the South, they have to talk about slavery in really positive, weird, like excited terms.
It's not even so much the terms, although yes, but like his tone of voice is always really positive. Like, and then slavery happened.
I don't know. It's very weird.
It's very weird.
It doesn't play well now.
But the reason that I mentioned it was because this guy who narrates this show has the best vocal quotation marks I have ever heard.
It has never been clearer to me that someone is saying a word that has quotation marks around it than when this man says them.
Yes.
It's pretty great.
Don't watch it. Or do. It's fine.
It's
we got
great.
the Smithsonian channel because we wanted to watch Aerial America.
It's great if you have a baby because it's just helicopter shots of the country. You know, let's see this magnificent country. We're going to do a whole bonus episode about it, so we'll get into that.
Anyway, sidebar over. And they get to the house and they're all very excited. And the grandmother is this just giant, dour, awful woman, meets them at the door, and it's the middle of the night, ushers them up into this one room and says, "You live here now. Good night."
This one time we went over to a friend's house with our dog, and our friend has a cat.
I told the story on the podcast before.
Whatever. Our friend has a cat, and there's this like back staircase. And at one point, our dog Oscar is very scared of the cat. And at one point, we saw we didn't see Oscar. We had no idea where he was, and our friend went to go look, and she came back, and she was like, "Oh, so I went to the back staircase, and my cat was at the top of the stairs, and Oscar was down at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me, going like, 'Hello, help! I live here now.' This is my whole entire life. I cannot move because of cat.
Yes.
And this is my life." That was the Dollenganger kids.
Yes.
The Dresden Dolls themselves are in this one room. We find out that is actually not true. Their life is not relegated to one room. Their life is relegated to 2 rooms.
Yes.
Because they also have the run of let me check my notes, the attic.
The attic.
We have half the title.
Yes.
We've gotten half the title. It's great. We just need the and the flowers.
Well, they make a bunch of flowers.
Where do they keep the flowers?
In the attic.
Hey, fantastic.
They make them out of paper and jewels and things, and they hang them up in the attic
Except for the real flowers that grandmother gives them.
Right. So they can have a garden. So those are the real flowers, or the literal flowers, and then they themselves, the children, are the metaphorical flowers in the attic.
I just flipped open the book. I want to just say, out of 400 some odd pages, I just flipped to page 65, which is the beginning of a chapter entitled The Attic. So, within 50, 60 pages, we have gotten to the location. We've met all the characters. We are in the primary location. The stage has been set. The tableau is arranged. And now the story can begin.
Yeah. So at first they're told they're just going to be there one night, and then it's a couple nights, and then it's a long time. And the grandmother seems very strange. She seems a strange person. And she has all these rules for them, like the boys and girls can't sleep in the same bed together. It has to be girls in one bed, boys in the other bed, even though the twins, they're used to sleeping together because they're little kids and they're twins. And they have to be modest in the bathroom, and they can't go into the bathroom together, which I approve of. I don't like anyone coming in the bathroom.
The girls can go in the bathroom together,
right,
and the boys can go in the bathroom together, but never the twain shall meet.
And just all these sort of weird, strange, puritanistic, sexual morality adjacent rules. And we find out why. Because the mother comes up one day and she's been whipped on her back. She's bleeding and it's gross. And she tells them the story that their last name is not Dollenganger. It's Foxworth.
Which is the name of the people that live in this house.
Yes.
This is Foxworth Hall.
And the reason that her mother and father disowned her, these many years ago, was that her husband was also her half uncle.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop you right there.
Yes.
For the people that know the story, just hang on for a second. For the people that are listening that don't know the story, I just want to prepare you. Shit gets complicated and the family gets complicated.
Yeah.
Because we're also going to talk about the sequels a little bit. And this is where it starts.
Yeah.
It took me a while to kind of wrap my head around the relationships here.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to explain it quickly as best I can. He's checking his watch. So Corinne's father, Malcolm, his father after the mother died, married a much younger woman. He married a woman who was like 16 and he was 55, and they had a son. So Corinne's father had a much, 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 much younger brother, more the age of his own child, who came to live with them after his parents both died, and was very attractive to Corinne and she to him, and they ran off together despite being uncle and niece and started a family. And
well, to be fair, half uncle and half niece.
Yes. To which the grandmother is very concerned that the children of this union are the devil's spawn. And so they are hiding the children from the grandfather so that he doesn't know that Corinne ever had children in this incestuous marriage. Now, we learn, not in this book, not in the next book.
Well, no, hang on. I'm going to stop you there.
Yes.
We'll talk. Let's save that for a minute.
All right.
I would rather focus on Flowers in the Attic
That's
for
fine.
a little bit,
That's
if that's
fine.
okay with you.
That's fine. So canon, as far as this book is concerned, is that they are half uncle and half niece.
Do you want to? How about this?
Yeah.
Can I pose something?
Sure.
Maybe we could just spend a couple of minutes going over some greatest hits, because I'll just tell everyone the entire rest of the book is them trapped in these two rooms.
Right.
Like there's like once or twice that like the older kids get out.
Yeah.
But the entire book takes place in these two rooms.
Yes.
And then some shit happens at the end. Maybe we could just what are some highlights for you? What are some things that happen in these kids' lives that are like either things that resonate with you or you found interesting or might be important to share with
Okay.
someone who hasn't read this shit?
So it is important to know
This is a trashy book.
a couple things that are important to know in no particular order. The twins never grow. We are given to understand because they are locked in an attic, which is definitely a good thing that you want to read when you're trying to raise a child in the middle of a pandemic and you're not allowed to go outside. They never grow.
I don't know why you decided to do this now.
I didn't really think about it. They never grow, except their heads. Their heads get huge. They're like bobbleheads. Chris wants to be a doctor.
He's the older brother.
He is set on that goal. And Kathy wants to be a ballerina. She's also set on that goal. Those are important things to know. I'm trying to think, like, obviously many things happen in the book.
Chris and Kathy fuck.
What
Chris and Kathy fuck.
you just jump to the own.
Why not? Why
Ha!
shouldn't we just jump to it? This is clearly the thing. So I want to be really clear. When I say this book is super trashy, I'm not saying that I'm clutching my pearls about incest.
Yeah.
Incest is a topic just like everything is. It can be handled well. It can be handled poorly. It's insane how much V.C. Andrews telegraphs the incest. She spends hundreds of pages getting you more and more. She gets you to the point where you are frothing at the mouth as a reader going like, when are they gonna fuck? Because I know they're gonna fuck. And she's doing that to you.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing that to you. This doesn't come out of the blue.
Yeah.
She is doing everything she can to make you understand that Kathy and Chris fucking is inevitable.
Yeah.
And they do fuck.
So they're trapped in this attic for like 3.5 years as they mature into a young man and a young woman with certain urges.
There's lots of talk about groins and breasts.
Periods, nocturnal emissions come up.
I don't need to hear about Chris's nocturnal emissions.
Unfortunately, we do hear about it. Lots of talk about bras and having babies or not having babies, and just general urges, lots of urges. And Chris, we learn, is just a man's man with all of his animal urges, and he's locked away in this attic with no outlet except his pretty sister.
He's got one pretty sister and one erect penis, and they are going to meet.
The twain shall meet.
It's the grossest sex scene I've ever read.
I mean, not least of all because it is non-consensual, like when it begins, and then it sort of becomes consensual, which is
I like
extremely
the fact,
problematic.
I like the fact that we've gotten to the point now, I feel like, as a society where we can start, like, we've kind of moved beyond the conversation of consent, where now we can have a more nuanced conversation because we've established this understanding of consent. Obviously not universally, but I feel like more people are talking about it now than I've ever talked about it before. Now we can have a conversation about, well, there's, let me try it. Consent, those quote marks didn't work. Quote unquote consent, and I'll go ahead and label it enthusiastic consent.
Yeah.
Right? Because enthusiastic consent, that's the cool consent. That's the good consent.
Right.
That's the best consent.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have, he does not have that from
No.
Kathy.
No. This is more like the classic romance novel trope that I think has gone out of fashion, which is like he puts himself upon her and she's like, no, you mustn't. I'm into it now. You know, like it's just kind of, it's just problematic. It's problematic. I don't know what else to say about it. It's not good. You should not have sex with your, I mean, I don't know. You're an only child. I am not an only child. I think I'm coming down pretty strong on the side of you should not have sex with your siblings. You should not do it under really almost any circumstances.
Adapt or Perish, a podcast with opinions.
I can't really think of any circumstances where I would think it was okay. I've had a margarita. I'm sorry.
We have to drink to do this episode. What the fuck did you make me read? It's not even like the content. It's just the way it's handled. It's so lurid.
It's lurid.
Everything. It's like the writing is so... Okay, I have a question for you. I know we're going to get to other stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about Corinne, if that's okay. But before we get to that, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is V.C. Andrews a good writer?
No.
Right?
No.
Like, she's not. It's really, really poorly written.
But somehow very compelling, like a really bad fan fiction. You just want to keep going.
Well, I guess it's important for me to be a little more, to distinguish this a little bit more, because when I talk about writing, that can refer to so many different things, because something can be like really well plotted, but the actual prose isn't good.
Yeah.
I guess this is what I'm looking at. Like, the book is really compelling. I actually got super angry at you. I didn't tell you this, but you came into the living room when I was reading this book, and I don't know if you remember this. It was like late at night, and you were trying to talk to me, and I was doing everything I could to give you the hint that I did not want to fucking talk, and I was not interested in what you had to say, because I had 15 pages left of the book.
Gotcha.
And this is a compelling book. I really wanted to know what happened. So I guess I have to praise V.C. Andrews from a plotting perspective.
Yeah.
Because the plot is compelling.
I think part of it is that she just has like a tin ear for dialogue. Like the dialogue is really, really unrealistic.
This is what I'm saying. The prose is terrible.
Yeah.
I hated the prose. I hated the actual act of reading this book, but I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, it's not the definition of trash, but like it's a pretty good definition of trash.
I mean, I enjoyed this reading so much that I went on and read the sequel, Petals in the Winds, before you had even finished Flowers in the Attic. So like that's how much I got into it.
I will not be reading those books.
That's fine.
Can I talk about Corinne?
Yes, please do.
I want to talk about, so in the back of the book, it says very specifically, locked away from the world by a selfish mother. That's some really intentional ambiguity right there, because you could read the first half of this book and think, oh, it's talking about the grandmother. It's talking about Corinne's mother, because it really seems like the grandmother is what's her name? Olivia, technically, even though like you never really hear that in this book.
Yeah, you never really hear it. It's Olivia Foxworth.
Yeah, because she doesn't want to ever like formally introduce herself to the kids, because they are, devil spawn. She doesn't want to get attached, which I think it's like fostering a dog. You don't want to get too attached, because then you get really sad when you have to give them away. That situation's nothing like this.
I don't see the comparison actually myself.
So, for the first half of the book, I thought it was the grandmother, because the grandmother does all these different things, and she's really crazy, and she like hits the kids, and she's a piece of shit. Like she's a good old fashioned piece of shit.
But she brings them food.
She does.
It's the same food every day.
I mean, it's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
She doesn't want them to starve to death.
Yeah.
She doesn't want like 4 dead children like decomposing in her attic.
Not really.
I feel like that's a low bar for childcare.
Except when she does stop feeding them for a while when she's mad at them. But anyway, please continue.
But the mom, I actually will say, one of the things that V.C. Andrews does really well is she really shows the change in character of the mom from the first page of the book to the last page. I think it's a beautiful arc.
Yeah.
And it's not, arc is kind of the wrong word, because she doesn't really change. It's that the perception that the kids have of their mother changes throughout the book. I'll bring this up again when we talk about the movies, but I would love to see a filmmaker do this book coming at it from the perspective of, what is it like to grow up and have your parents change from, quote unquote, your parents? I can't do it. Quote unquote, your parents to people, I think that's something that I really pulled out of this. And it's something I've thought about for a really long time, but it's not really necessarily in the text. It's like, it's subtext, but I don't even know if it's on purpose. But Corinne, in the eyes of the kids, really changes. Because at the beginning, they love her. She's wonderful. But by the end of the book, they really gain an understanding of the fact that she is a supremely narcissistic, selfish sociopath.
Yeah.
who is, I'm just going to call it out there, actively trying to murder them.
Yes, she does do that.
This is an important plot point that we'll talk about, and I'll give that back to you.
Yeah.
But I do think, as a reader of this book, seeing that dawning comprehension through the eyes of the children, the mom is an incredibly compelling sociopath, like from a literary standpoint. She was the character that kept me up at night. Like when I finished this book, I really had trouble sleeping that night.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of like the kids wasting away. It wasn't because of the grandmother. I actually didn't mind the grandmother that much. It was the idea of a mother being able to do that to her kids to get an inheritance.
Yes.
Which you find out is the reason for it.
Yes.
She was genuinely creepy, really good. If someone tells me that they love this book because of the mom, I have a lot of respect for that, because I think the mom was really effective and I like that part.
Yeah.
But like the lurid incest and that shit, like I just found that disgusting and awful and poorly written, and also I couldn't put this book down.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the murder plot?
So yeah, I had a similar reaction to Corinne on this reading as you did. This was definitely the first time I've read this since having a child. So like the idea that like, oh, you can just what it made me think of was, so Corinne, at first she visits every day and she brings them toys and clothes and games and just everything they could ever want. She brings them a TV, and just as time goes on, she visits like less and less frequently for shorter and shorter amounts of time. She's more and more distracted. She's just getting caught up in the sort of social scene of, these rich families. And then it turns out that she's met this guy named Bart, who's her dad's lawyer, and they are engaged. And then it turns out she married him like months before and never told the children. And then suddenly she's back from her honeymoon and she wants them to be happy for her. She's awful.
You could fill a book with all the things she keeps from the children.
Yes.
V.C. Andrews did that.
Literally so. But the whole time it just made me think of like, you're neglecting something. It's like when you have like an email sitting in your inbox about something that you are supposed to do. And for a while, like you're like, okay, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then you're looking at it and going, realistically, I'm not going to do this tomorrow or anytime soon, but I'm just going to keep it in my inbox. So I'm staring at it every time I open my email. I feel really guilty about it. And then after a really long time, you're like, I'm just going to archive this. I'm never actually going to do it, but I'm going to just like let it sit in my mind, and I feel guilty about it, but I don't want it sitting in front of my face all day.
Like clearly the universe is okay with me not responding to this email because it's never come up that I never responded.
Yeah, that's how I handle a lot of important documents. Actually, I just put them in my like little in tray and then just let time take care of it. And by the time I clear out the in tray, it's not relevant anymore.
I'm pretty sure entire like shelves of business books have been written about that.
Yeah. But I pay all my bills. I pay all my bills on time. And I don't keep my children in attics.
Do you think your credit score is like dependent about what you say on your podcast?
I got an email from my credit score. It said I paid 100% of bills on time. I had the highest rating.
It just sounded like you were talking directly to Equifax and not like our listeners.
Because the second highest rating goes up to 99%. To get the highest rating, you have to pay 100% of your bills on time. And I had the highest rating.
In this economy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please give us money on our Patreon. I got a job. It's very exciting. I got a job. As we're listening to this, I start like beginning of next week. So if anyone was worried.
No, if you're listening to this on the day it came out, she started work yesterday.
Yeah, there it is. So the kids have been in the attic for months and years, and they get this picnic basket of food every single morning. It's got breakfast, lunch, and dinner in it. And they never get any like candy or sweets because obviously like they can't be taken to the dentist, so they don't want to rot their teeth. And it's always the same food. It's the same food, same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner every single day. They're super sick of it. They're super bored of it. And then one day, in addition to their usual menu, are 4 powdered sugar donuts.
Quick sidebar.
Yes.
Quick sidebar. So again, to bring up the Patreon, if you become an all-access patron, you get access to our community Slack. And we were chatting in the community Slack with some of our listeners, and we were talking about this, and someone said, oh, yes, the powdered donuts. And I hadn't read that far in the book yet, so I didn't know what they were talking about, but I knew it was something. So I was reading the book, just so interested in what the deal with the powdered donuts was, like what dead family members have been chopped up and like put into the middle of the powdered donuts, like what awful thing. And like, yeah, you find out what the deal is with the powdered donuts. I was super disappointed because I expected it to be way more interesting. What's the deal with the powdered donuts?
They're covered in arsenic. She's trying to kill them with poison.
Like, what kind of fucking Agatha Christie shit is that?
Poison donuts.
Like, That's not even Agatha Christie. That's like one episode of like Miss Marple or something like that. Did you like that reference?
It did. It was good. It was good, sweetie.
I don't watch that show.
And at a certain point, Chris is able to make like a duplicate of the key to the room, so secretly they can get out. And he begins to explore the house, but really what he wants is to start stealing money and anything that he thinks that they won't miss, but he can sell because they're going to try to escape.
I love the fact that you're already skipping to the end of the book. This is great.
This is great. Well, I mean, what we got? Powdered donuts. We got kids in the attic. We got incest. Like, there's all kinds of things. Kathy, the grandmother puts tar in Kathy's hair because she catches her and Chris in the bathroom together, and then they have to cut the hair off, and then they try to she tries to starve them, and then they have to eat mice, and they have to drink blood. It's horrible.
A whole bunch of things that are less interesting than the gross sexy incest happen.
But anyway, he gets to see the most amazing thing. My favorite thing is the swan bed. Corinne, it turns out, has a bed in the shape of a swan. It's amazing and fantastic, and I was really looking forward to seeing the swan bed in both of the adaptations we watched, and I was heartily disappointed both times. It did not live up to the swan bed of my imagination.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I told you to do Flowers in the Attic for this show.
But anyway.
Wait, that was your idea.
Time is passing, trying to collect more money. Kathy's like, let's just go. Chris is like, no, we gotta wait. It turns out the grandfather's been dead for a while.
Oh, that's the whole thing. I don't know if you said that, but like they've been waiting for the grandfather to die.
Right.
Like the mom is going to be back in the will, but he can't know that she had kids, so they have to wait for him to die. By the time they're actually out, like Corinne skipped town and they found out that the grandfather died a year ago, and that's the big reveal at the end of the book.
And he also wrote into his will that like if she's ever proven to have kids,
to have had kids as a result of her incestuous marriage,
that she'll be written out of the will again. So like they realize, oh my gosh, the plan was to keep us up here until we died. Like they were never going to let us out.
Oh, by the way, when you say the kids, which kids are you talking about?
Oh, well, this is what I was coming to.
I'm so sorry.
In the meantime, they're like getting kind of wasting away. They're getting sick a lot, and they don't have energy, and they feel bad, and they just think it's because we've been locked in this attic for a long time. And one day, Corey, who is the boy twin, who's always been kind of, delicate, he gets really, really, really sick, and the grandmother comes up and the mother comes up, and they're like, you have to take this kid to the hospital. And they do, and they come back. No Corey. He has passed. He died. And they realize that they give a piece of one of the donuts to Corey's pet mouse, and the mouse dies, and they realize that they're all being slowly poisoned with arsenic. They realize they have to go, and they just fucking go. They just like get the key, and the three of them hightail it out of town. They get on the train, and they've got some money, and they peace out, and that is the end of book one.
Well, one thing that's kind of interesting at the end is there's this idea of like what's happened to them as people, because they're definitely very angry with her. And Kathy especially is very angry with her. And Kathy's the main character of the book.
Yeah, it's all written in her first person.
They have a chance to take a sample of the donut and the dead mouse to like the police, but eventually they think, you know what? Fuck her. We're just going to have our own life. And we're done with her.
Let's just go.
Yeah. And that's how the book ends.
With our one surviving twin.
Yeah. I was thoroughly disappointed at the end of the book. I expected more.
Yeah.
This doesn't bother me in movies as much as it bothers other people, where you watch a movie and they're clearly setting up for a franchise. Mm-hmm. They're clearly introducing things that are like, oh, this character doesn't really have much to do. Obviously, they're going to come back in the sequel. And like the end isn't really an end. It's more of like, it's not even really a cliffhanger. It's just like setting up things for the sequel. I actually kind of like that. I don't really mind it in movies so much, but I know it pisses other people off. In this, it really pissed me off. Because I didn't want to read anymore. Yeah. Because it's terrible and I hated it, even though I read the whole thing very, very quickly because I wanted to read it. But yeah, so much of this stuff comes back in the sequels. And this book, can we talk about the sequels? Do you have anything else to say about Flowers in the Attic as a book?
Do you want to just quickly mention? So the first sequel is called Petals in the Wind.
So Flowers in the Attic was published in 1979. Then a year later in 1980, Petals on the Wind was introduced. I am going to go through some of the major plot points right now. I want to spoil the entire series for everybody.
This is funny that you're doing the plot points because I read it. You haven't read this book.
I don't trust you to do it quickly.
All right.
Because you have too much attachment to it. So while they are on their way down to Florida to escape the South, they were in Virginia. By the way, it takes place in the 50s. I guess that's important. They meet a couple of people. They meet Dr. Paul Sheffield and his maid, Henny
Henny
Beach. So, okay, Kathy gets older. Dr. Paul likes her, but she ends up marrying this guy named Julian, who's another dancer. He turns out to be a piece of shit. He breaks Kathy's toes. He knocks her up. She has a baby. Then he becomes paralyzed in a car accident and dies by suicide. Kathy gives birth to a baby named Jory, who is the son of Julian. They move back to Virginia. Carrie dies by suicide. How did she kill herself?
She ate poison donuts.
Arsenic donuts.
Arsenic
because
donuts.
she ran into their mom in the town, but the mom wasn't willing to acknowledge her, and she was like, "My mom doesn't love me." Like, of course she fucking doesn't, and she dies by suicide via arsenic donuts. Then Kathy seduces Bart, who's the guy that married their mom, and he knocks her up. So now she's going to have a second baby. Then there's a big Christmas ball. All is revealed. She shows up. Corinne has a mental breakdown and sets Foxworth Hall on fire. Bart and Olivia, the grandmother, die. Corinne is committed to an insane asylum. Kathy and Chris decide to become a couple, and they and the two babies move to California.
Yeah, you missed a little, but
I know I
pretty good.
did. I know I did.
Chris has become a doctor in the interim.
Right.
Paul Sheffield is a doctor. Kathy, after Bart dies, marries Paul, but they can never have sex because he's had 6 heart attacks. But then he dies, and she and Chris set off together for their new life with her 2 children by different men.
It's a goddamn soap opera. If There Be Thorns, 1981.
I did not recently read this, so you go ahead.
This entire book is told from the perspective of Jory, who, by the way, of the children, is the handsome and talented one. And there's Bart, Jr., who is the plain and clumsy one who also cannot feel pain. Apparently, that's part of the story.
I remember that.
They adopt a girl who is the child of some dead people that they meet, named Cindy. Bart gets taken in by the old lady next door. She says, "Call me grandmother." Who do you think the old lady is?
Corinne.
It's Corinne, OMG. By the way, John Amos, the butler, he's there too. He was the butler in the big house, and he is now Corinne's butler here.
Oh boy.
Okay. Bart basically becomes the good son. So the entire book is like Bart creepy. Like, he kills Jory's dog. He tries to kill the little baby Cindy. It's all fucked up. Then at one point, Bart gets Kathy and Corinne locked in the basement. I think Kathy is paralyzed by this point.
Oh God, I don't even remember that.
Yeah, there's a big fire. Corinne saves Kathy and then dies from exhaustion. And by that point, Kathy has forgiven her because she has saved her life. Blah, 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 blah. That's the end of the book. Then Seeds of Yesterday, and people who love this series are going, "You're skipping so much." I fucking know I am. Seeds of Yesterday, 1984. Turns out, so Corinne had 2 brothers who are mentioned in the first book, but they are both dead by the time the book starts. This is that shit I'm talking about. Like, why would you introduce 2 dead brothers if one or both of them aren't going to come back at some point? Turns out her brother Joel didn't die in an avalanche in the Alps or wherever. He's been living in a convent. He is alive. He's super religious. There's so much religious stuff that happens. Like, Bart becomes a preacher. He becomes like a televangelist, essentially. Everyone gets paralyzed. I wrote that. I don't remember why.
V.C. Andrews was like obsessed with people being paralyzed.
Like in wheelchairs.
Yeah, in My Sweet Audrina, like multiple people are paralyzed.
Yeah. So Chris dies in a car accident just like his dad did. Then Kathy dies. And my last note is, Then we have Garden of Shadows, 1987.
Now, this is the prequel, I believe.
This is the prequel. This is all about Olivia. So this is her growing up in the house and marrying the dad. It really makes her much more sympathetic. And it really builds on some things that V.C. Andrews did in the original book, because you do get the sense, and this is something I also liked from it, she is ostensibly the villain, but when you start to pay more attention, you realize there are these little hints of humanity where, like, she does give them some actual flowers to put in the attic. When she brings the donuts up, she does say to them something along the lines of, "Don't eat those, you'll rot your teeth, but they're from your mom," which makes you think she knows they're poisoned, but, like, she doesn't want them to die, because I guess in her mind that is more evil, which it is. The big thing we find out, and this is the thing you were alluding to, do you want to actually say what the relationship was between Christopher and Corinne, the half-niece and half-uncle?
Right. So it turns out that Chris, son of Alicia, is not the son of Malcolm's father. He is the son of Malcolm, who had seduced his father's younger wife, and she bore his child. So Corinne and Christopher were not half niece and half uncle. They were actually half brother and half-sister, because their father was Malcolm, which presumably at the time that he freaked out about their marriage, he knew that, which is probably why everyone was so terribly upset.
You would think so.
Mm-hmm.
So V.C. Andrews died at one point, which is sad.
She died at one point.
And the series was taken over by a guy named Andrew Niederman.
Mm-hmm.
So there are these other books that are called Christopher's Diaries.
Yeah.
So these were published in 2014 and 2015. I can't imagine they weren't done to tie in with the Lifetime series that we're going to talk about the first chapter of later. But we have Secrets of Foxworth, Echoes of Dollenganger, and Secret Brother. These are... Basically, a descendant of the Foxworths has moved into the estate, goes in the attic, and finds journals. She finds diaries that Chris, the son Chris, was keeping during the events of Flowers in the Attic.
Ah.
So it's the entire story of Flowers in the Attic told from Chris's perspective.
Gotcha.
So you find out other stuff.
She did a similar thing with Twilight. She just rewrote the whole thing from Edward's perspective.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it. That's the series.
Well, I mean, the thing about Andrew Niederman that people may find interesting is he has written 100 V.C. Andrews books. The only books that V.C. Andrews ever wrote were, I think, the first 2 or 3 Flowers in the Attic books and My Sweet Audrina. Every other book that you see with the author listed as V.C. Andrews was written by Andrew Niederman, because she died and he just has been writing under her name for many, many, many years.
It's a whole thing. So in 1987, against everyone's better judgment, a movie was made of Flowers in the Attic. Can I tell you a little bit about the people behind this movie?
Yes.
I got bummed out because I found out about the person who almost made this movie.
Mm-hmm.
This was almost a Wes Craven joint.
Oh.
You know, the guy who's most well known for doing Music of the Heart with Meryl Streep.
Uh-huh.
Also
guy?
like Nightmare on Elm Street and lots of horror movies.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see that. I'll just throw this out here at the beginning. Something that's going to come up as I talk about this is I don't always necessarily want everything to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything can be great, but it would be great if things were interesting.
Yeah.
And I didn't like this movie.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like its greatest sin isn't that it's like not a great movie. Its greatest sin is that it's not very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of boring.
Ironically, its greatest sin is that it doesn't do incest.
That is my Sir not appearing in this film, is the incest, actually. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's just a super boring adaptation of something that's really lurid and really trashy, and it ends up being not any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really disappointing to find out that Wes Craven wrote a treatment for it, and they just the producers didn't want it, and he ended up leaving the project. So the script that they liked was written by a guy named Jeffrey Bloom. So V.C. Andrews did want script approval. It was produced by these two guys named Cy Levin and Thomas. It's either Freeze or Fries. I'm going to say Freeze. Bloom's script was the one they liked. He ended up directing it as well. So it is a Jeffrey Bloom joint, in as much as that he wrote the original script and was there for 90% of the shooting and then left the project. And they shot the end of the movie again without him, and he had nothing to do with editing the movie.
Cool.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you guess one big thing that was in his script and was something they shot?
Did his script include incest?
Sure did.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And they shot some incest as well.
Oh, God.
That didn't make it to the final cut.
I mean, you would think that was an important plot point, but, I don't know. What do I know?
Some people who were in the movie, Christy Swanson, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Not from TV.
No, not the TV Buffy.
I'm glad she wasn't the TV Buffy.
Oh, everyone is.
She's not a very good actress.
She really isn't. She seems like a delightful person, but is not a very good actor. She plays Kathy. A guy named Jeb Stewart Adams plays Chris.
Of course he does.
She's 18. He's 25.
Gross.
Playing, 13 and 15?
Ish.
Yeah. Victoria Tennant plays Corinne.
Uh-huh.
Victoria Tennant of stuff.
Yep.
LA Story. Things like that. Louise Fletcher plays Olivia the grandmother.
What a fucking get for this movie. Man, they must have been over the moon. Louise Fletcher, always typecast.
What name some things that people might know, Louise? Okay, let me ask you this.
Yes.
Hey, Ariel, I'm a film buff. I love films from like the 60s and 70s, especially Jack Nicholson. I really like that 70s Hollywood vibe. What do I know Louise Fletcher from?
She was Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, I know that. Hang on, I'm a different person. I really like sci-fi. I don't really like movies that much, but I watch tons of TV. Show really good sci-fi like Quantum Leap and Sequest DSV. I also really like Star Trek. What do I know Louise Fletcher from?
She's Kai Wynn from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Oh, that asshole.
Yes, that really, really shitty Bajoran spiritual leader who is a jerk to everyone.
Mm-hmm. So she's a get.
Yeah.
I feel like something that comes up on the show all the time. How many movies do we watch that really feel like regional theater?
A lot, especially like TV movies a lot of the time.
This was a theatrical movie,
No,
though.
I know, but I'm just saying sometimes, you get that feeling.
It really feels like they were like, oh, we got Louise Fletcher. It's pretty great.
She agreed to do it. Like, that was in the treatment. It was like, get someone like Louise Fletcher. Then she said she'd do it.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah. Two other people I'm going to mention really quickly in this movie. Do you remember there's the wedding at the end? Like they change it.
Oh no, I remember.
Yeah. So there's the wedding at the end. Do you remember the flower girl gets like a lot of screen time?
I do remember that. I did remember that.
So the flower girl is producer Thomas Freese's daughter, Brooke,
Shocker.
which is utterly shocking. Also, there is a maid in the movie who has one shot of her washing a window, and she was played by V.C. Andrews.
That's great.
Because this was filmed the year before she died.
Oh, good for her.
So
not for dying.
She's in it. I read this really amazing thing where someone who knew her later was talking about it, going like, "No, it's really like appropriate that she's washing the window because writers, what they're doing is they're like making." They're making the view that you have of the characters clearer.
Oh boy!
So metaphorically, it's good that she's washing the window. That's horse shit.
That's terrible.
So I wanted to take a little bit to talk about some background on this movie. Do you want to talk about this movie? Where do you want to start with this thing?
I mean, first of all, important to note, they changed the time period from the 50s to like at the time present day. So everything's very, very 80s. There's a lot of like shoulder pads and things like that. One thing they did that I appreciated is like the first like 10-15 minutes of the movie, they are trucking through this plot. Like they are just it is boom boom boom.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to imagine that the guy that played the state trooper like read the book and was like, I mean I'm only in this one scene, but I have a wicked long monologue
about defensive driving.
I'm so excited to deliver these lines, and his whole thing is completely in like pantomime and silence. The just state trooper comes on. It's clear he's delivering bad news. And here we are weeks or months later, and the dad has been dead for some time. Like it's just, they just want to get these kids in this attic as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. Well, one good thing I'll say about it, the guy who plays the dad like cuts an imposing figure. He's a very tall, handsome guy.
Oh, he's the poor man's Robert Redford.
They do everything they can. I think they actually do a good job of making you think like, oh, he's a great guy. They really love him, and now he's dead. That's sad. Like that's. I'm not saying the movie is like really poorly made. Some parts of it I think are well done, and that's an example of something that's well done. I have nice things to say.
Yeah. Another thing they did that was I appreciated was they put poor little Corey in a terrible, terrible blonde wig.
You assume,
or did his hair in a weird way that to me made him completely unsympathetic, because I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I have started getting very, very upset when I read or see things that bad things happen to little boys. I don't know why. Luckily, I was able to distance myself from this a little bit because I had no feelings for Corey at all.
I bet it wasn't a wig. I'm coming down on no wig.
Okay. I don't want to like body shame a child.
But there is another thing.
I think this kid might be a werewolf. What was going on with his arms? He's the hairiest kid I've ever seen.
Like you don't notice it at first because he's like very, very pale
white blonde.
Yeah.
But he has the most hair on his arms. This kid is hairier than Robin Williams. I've never seen a child
shockingly hairier than Robin Williams.
Yeah, my almost like I only almost wonder if he has like some condition, which I don't want to make fun of him for if so.
This is the kind of movie this is. We got distracted by that.
We get distracted by a hairy child.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like just they make a lot of weird choices just in the plot of the movie. Like when they walk up to the house and it's supposed to be the middle of the night, but it's broad daylight. And then like the grandmother opens the front door and introduces them to the butler. Like no one's supposed to know that they're there. It's a secret. I did not understand. Like they just like walked in the front door. Hi, John the butler. Like, let's have a conversation about who we are. Here are our names. And they're not worried that someone's going to be like, hey, there's a bunch of kids living in the... There's a weird groundskeeper that they keep running into, like a creepy groundskeeper for no apparent reason. And the swan bed in this was bullshit. The swan bed was nothing. Nothing. It was just a bed with swans on it. It was so upsetting. It's supposed to be the shape of a swan, like, like a canopy bed. Like the canopy, it's supposed to be like, how, Bjork wore that swan dress? Like it's supposed to be like the canopy of the bed is like the neck and head of the swan, and the sides of the bed are like the swan's wings. It's like you're going to bed inside a giant swan. And this was just a bed with a picture of a swan on it. So upsetting.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
The swan is underwritten. That is my determination.
One other thing I'll throw out about where the whole thing was shot.
Yes.
It was shot at Castle Hill on the Crane Estate here in Massachusetts.
Well, at the Crane Estate, they have that Roaring Twenties party every year that we never have gone to.
Yeah, but they've shot all kinds of things there. They shot The Witches of Eastwick there, and The Next Karate Kid, and God, I think a scene from The New Little Women, the Greta Gerwig one, but I got to double check on that.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to double check. It's not important, but like I think part of it was shot there.
Yeah.
But that's a cool thing about it.
Yeah.
Can I throw out something that I did not appreciate about this movie?
Yes.
Among others, but the thing I'll start with. This is a thing that's come up before in other adaptations. I often appreciate when source material is told from one character's perspective. So we as an audience find out about things when that character finds out about things, because them finding out is part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, they kind of throw that out the window halfway. So like Kathy's still telling the story. There's still voiceover. And most of the movie is from the perspective of the kids. But then we also do cut throughout the house sometimes to see things that are happening. And the audience finds out about them before the kids find out about them, which I genuinely hate.
Yeah.
I don't like when that happens unless there's a really good reason for it. And in this one, I don't think they have a good reason for it.
No.
So like when Corinne gets whipped, we as an audience know that it's happening before the kids do. And I think the reason they did it was to amp up the creepiness, but like it's not creepy. It's just not handled that well when she like is in the room with, we also see the grandfather a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When in the book, the kids like never see him. So he's really mysterious.
Yeah.
It's like Jaws in reverse. It's like in the book you see the shark all the time, but in the movie you don't, which makes it creepier.
Yeah.
This is the opposite. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was something I really didn't like, and it just felt very lazy to me.
When Corinne takes off her blouse to show like her whipping wounds,
oh, it's gross.
You can see like clearly what they did was they took like a sheer top and like painted wounds on it and had her just like put it on rather than like actually paint the injuries on her body. I guess it was easier, but you can clearly see like the neckline and like where she bends her arm, you can see like the material of the fabric. It's not good. It's not good. It's low budget for sure.
Can I throw out another thing?
Yeah.
I didn't totally buy for a long time why they were trapped in the house. Because one of the things about it is, I mentioned Jeb Stuart Adams as Chris.
Yeah.
This guy is 25.
30.
Like, he can take Louise Fletcher.
Yeah.
It's very clear that he could take Louise Fletcher if he wanted to, and does at the end, like, fairly easily. He does at the end when he's, like, a victim of arsenic poisoning.
Yeah.
When he's, like, young and strong at the beginning, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that the only thing keeping them in the house for a long time is the script.
The plot, yeah.
Like, the plot, they have to stay there, so of course they stay there.
Yes.
Thankfully, finally, about halfway through, some genuine problems are introduced where, like, there are vicious dogs, and there's that caretaker you were talking about with the shotgun. Like, thankfully that stuff happened. So we didn't end the movie with them. Like, there were some reasons why they were staying in the house, but like for the longest time, like, it didn't feel genuine that they were trapped in the house.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
Can I introduce a different nominee for Sir not appearing in this film?
Yeah, go for it.
Donuts.
Oh yeah, fuck that.
Where are the donuts?
Or were they
no donuts?
Were they under the cookies?
They just for some reason change. This is the thing that drives me bonkers in the 70 whatever episodes of this show, when someone makes a change for no apparent reason and it does not improve the plot in any way. It doesn't make it worse, but it doesn't make it better. And there's no earthly reason to make this change. Why are they cookies instead of donuts? Why? Can you answer that?
No, I mean, I think there's a general lack of attention to detail in this.
Yeah.
I have another example of that.
Go ahead.
We had a problem, weirdly, with the door. of their room. Like, this goes back to the whole thing of them being trapped.
Yeah.
Like, the door feels like the flimsiest set door you could possibly. It feels like
so
community
thin.
theater.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things where when you only have 2 locations for your entire movie, it's really just the room and the attic. Attention to detail goes a long way.
Yeah.
And when they clearly show that level of like a lack of attention to detail, it can't help but set us against the project.
Yeah. Well, yes. And also, like, similarly, I mean, I think something we learned from a million viewings of different versions of Little Women is it's very, very hard to make a wig that looks like someone's long hair has been chopped off short. Because I'm not sure we saw one single version where anybody's hair looked good. Except Winona Ryder, she looked great.
Saoirse Ronan looked good.
Yeah, she looked good. But when the grandmother chops off Kathy's hair, she's just got this really, really, really spiky wig that goes on and just kind of sits a couple inches up above her head. It's just like floating on her head. And I said to you at one point, like, I think they put her in more baggy clothes to make it look like she's getting like thinner and skinnier, which, as anybody who, you know, is not super happy with their body knows, like, wearing baggy clothes does not make you look skinnier. It just doesn't. It does not work. But I said her style got very witchy after the haircut. She always had this like very like long flowing velour top on.
Do you know who she looked like for me?
Who?
I didn't end up telling you this.
Yeah.
Pris from Blade Runner, Daryl Hannah's character.
Okay.
Do you remember what she looked like?
I kind of do remember that. Yeah.
I'm showing you a picture right now.
Yeah, no, I get
Slightly
it.
longer hair, but like, of course, Pris had like really like light makeup. Like she was really painted white the entire time.
Oh, they all had like this really bad like starvation / arsenic poisoning makeup on the whole time.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how they changed the ending? Because this was batshit.
Okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
So in the original script, here's what happens. They confront everyone at the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
They come down from their room. Corinne is marrying Bart. They walk in and they go, "We are the children. We've been trapped in the attic. We're not all here anymore because Corey died."
Yes.
Everyone goes crazy. Olivia attacks them with a butcher's knife.
Oh, boy.
I think it was a butcher's knife. Then the butler saves them and the children leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's the original ending.
Yes, that is not the ending we witnessed.
This is also the original ending of a script that included like incest and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So they made lots of changes to it. By the way, it seems like there isn't 100% certainty about why the incest was removed. Apparently there were a number of test screenings and they had a theater full of like young women who like tweens and teens who are clearly the target audience for this book.
Yeah.
Apparently did not like the incest in the movie.
Weird.
So
It's the main point of the book. It's the point of the book.
So they removed the incest.
It's literally the point. I don't understand. Like,
But
it's just a weird plot if there's no incest. Like, who would have thought I would be I would be standing up for incest? But it's the point of the book, man. Like, it's the whole point.
But I feel like you could point at a lot of different things. Like, I don't think it's great for people to like, let's say you're telling a story about someone who has an intellectual disability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's super cool for you to write a story where the way to kind of solve the problems that might result from having someone who has an intellectual disability is to kill them by shooting them in the back of the head.
Oh my God. Okay.
But Of Mice and Men is a classic novel.
I guess.
What I'm saying is...
I don't know what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, if you only look at something from the plot on its face with no context, you lose what the point might be.
I guess.
Whereas Of Mice and Men is a classic for a reason, and it's not necessarily endorsing it. It's part of the story, though.
Right.
Like, if someone did a version of Mice and Men where the two guys are just friends and, like, ride off into the sunset together...
Yeah, you'd be like, oh my God, that's misses the point of the book.
It misses the point. Like, sometimes things happen that are hard to deal with, and characters do things you may not agree with. Like, if every book you ever read and every movie you ever read was full of characters who like undertook actions that you wholeheartedly agree with, what kind of fucking world would we be living in?
A terrible one.
A terrible, boring world. Like, So what I'm saying is you're not endorsing incest. What you're endorsing are interesting stories.
Yeah.
And sometimes interesting stories can contain things that we don't endorse.
Yeah.
That's how stories fucking work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was probably like the worst example I could give, but it is the only thing I could think of.
Okay. So let me just go through the end of this movie to the best of my recollection.
They reshot the whole thing and everything that I just described, basically, it doesn't happen that way.
Okay. The grandmother comes into the room. It's the morning of Corinne's wedding day. They have a physical altercation with the grandmother and I believe knock her out or at least like incapacitate her in some way.
Yeah.
And run downstairs. They find the grandfather's room empty because he's dead and has been dead for a while. And then they find the wedding invitation for Corinne and Bart that only has the grandmother's name on it. So it's not like Mr. and Mrs. Foxworth invite you to the wedding of their daughter. It's just like Mrs. Olivia Foxworth. So he's clearly been dead a while. And we find this is a thing that you're annoyed about because we actually see Corinne separate from their perspective. And someone's saying like, oh, your mother's not here. And she's like, she's not going to ruin my wedding day. We're going to go ahead without her. And she's wearing what I think you described as the most conservative wedding dress anyone's ever worn. It covers her like from her neck to her wrists to her ankles and has a cape.
I feel like the neckline technically started about 3 inches above the top of her head.
Yeah.
And I think the hem of the skirt ended about 2 feet below her feet.
Yes. And it has a cape. Well, more than that because it's got a train.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It has a cape.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down it's got a cape.
The sleeves end about 3 feet below her hands.
Yes, they're long sleeves. The children interrupt the wedding. They just mosey on down the aisle. As you say, there's many, many, many shots of this flower girl who's suddenly important for the reason of her being the daughter of the producer.
And it makes sense because they had to reshoot the entire thing, so they had to scramble and get people.
Yeah.
Like, none of these people were in the cast originally, so they need a flower girl, so who are they going to get?
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense.
Confront her with the evidence. She says, I don't know you. They say, we're your children. She says, I don't have any children.
Did you buy Kathy's little speech, by the way? Like, I know we said, I don't want to dunk on Christy Swanson too much.
Yeah.
She's not super good in this.
She's not super good.
But, like, I think she is the super not goodest in this scene.
Yeah. She's like, Mother, you did this and you did that. You did this.
Don't you remember us, Mother?
Mother. And then produces one of the arsenic cookies, advances on her mother, screaming, eat the cookie. Eat the cookie. And her mother, like, trips and falls backwards.
They go out the door, like onto like the patio,
and she like gets caught up in some kind of rope or netting and
no, it's the train. It's
the train of her gown or the cape. It's the cape. And she hangs. She strangles herself.
Well, it's a real Disney villain death.
Yeah.
Because as everyone knows, everybody knows this. In a Disney movie, the hero can never be they can never be directly responsible for the death of the villain.
Yeah, the hero can't be a murderer.
Right. So the villain always has to die as a result of their own actions, whether they slip on the roof of the building or fall through vines and strangulate. Like they always have to die as a result of their own actions. Right. Corinne falls over the side and she gets hung by her own wedding dress.
Right. And you see just her one kind of witchy shoe sticking up, and the kids, despite having just murdered someone, just walk away. And that's the last shot of the movie. They just peace out, and that's the end.
It's dumb.
It's not good.
I don't know. Like, can I go back to the thing I said at the very beginning of this section? They took something that I wouldn't describe as great, but at least it was interesting, and they turned it into something that I also wouldn't describe as great, but not interesting.
Yeah.
And how could you have fucked it up worse? Like, I'm offended by it. Yeah. And I don't necessarily, like, blame Jeffrey Bloom, the writer and director. Like, it sounds like he wasn't in a great situation. It sounds like the producers had made it really hard and he left the project. Like, I don't want to judge his performance by what we saw, because it sounds like there's a whole other version of the movie that he intended to make that, like, also didn't sound like it was going to be very good, but at least it sounded like it was going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So, blah.
The end.
Thank God they remade it again.
And not only did they remake it, they went a lot farther, because there's 4 TV movies that exist now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not just TV movies. Lifetime original movies.
This is number 3 for us, right?
I think so. I believe so.
How does this rank for you in terms of our Lifetime originals?
I think it's the best one.
You think it's the best one?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it more than Pride and Prejudice Atlanta?
I did like Pride and Prejudice Atlanta. No, it's second to Pride and Prejudice Atlanta. It's better than The Bad Seed with Rob
of
Lowe.
course, it's so much better than The Bad Seed. So much better than that. Do you want to paint a picture for this one? It came out in 2014, but like paint a picture.
I mean, I feel like one of the high points of this remake is the casting. They got some great people, or at least people that really fulfilled these archetypes, I guess. Heather Graham is the mom. Heather Graham is, how old did you say she was? She's like 50?
She's 50 now. She was 46 she was 44 when they made it.
Heather Graham looks great.
Yeah.
She looks great. She looks really good. And she's not a good actor, in a vacuum, but like as
I was waiting for the qualifier. As
the sort of like very pretty but getting on towards middle-aged, like vacuous but also charming and evil sociopath, I think she's very well cast.
I think
this is not to say anything about her personally.
I think it's good casting. I don't think they went I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I don't think they went far enough with her. But I think it's good casting. She's not that great, but at least there's something about her that fits the material.
Yes.
Again, I don't think she's a sociopath.
Right.
But
personally, you mean?
No.
Kiernan Shipka, I thought was pretty good as Kathy.
I was really excited about that because I don't want to judge someone by what they were like as like a real child actor, but I watched all of Mad Men. She's in the whole thing. She is like, she's not good in Mad Men. And like, I guess it's a little mean to say that about a kid, but also I don't mean it in a bad way. She's a kid and kids are not always good actors. I was kind of dreading this because my experience with Kiernan Shipka is Mad Men. I thought she was fantastic in this.
She was very good.
I thought she turned in a really, really good performance.
Yeah, but someone really stole the show, I thought.
Was that Mason Dye as Chris?
It was not. Someone who just understood the material that they were working with, put in a full and nuanced performance. I am not saying this in jest in the least. I thought Ellen Burstyn as the grandmother was really good. She was so good. And the thing that she did that you mentioned while we were watching and I really appreciated was like, it was clear that she didn't have any experience with keeping kids in attics. Like I feel like
You mean the character doesn't?
The character doesn't. Like,
yeah.
I feel like there's this assumption that like these kids show up and she knows exactly what she's going to do with them. But she was like, I don't know. I guess they can stay in the attic. No, it's definitely no, not in the same bed. Kids, no, not in the same bed. But like, it wasn't this like this well thought out plan. And then the next morning she came up with all the rules that clearly she had sat up and thought more distinctly about it. And that gave her a place to start, so she had somewhere to go to become kind of crazier and crazier as it went on. And then she got her comeuppance because this is the only one, I think, where they actually lured the grandmother into the stairwell, which we'd been previously told she was claustrophobic, and then entrapped her there. And that was where the grandmother went.
I don't know how well they sold it, but I'm glad that it happened.
It's good that they got like a little of their own back, their own medicine, whatever. You know what I mean?
Her performance was the most genuinely surprising part of this entire thing.
Yes.
It was just such a pleasant, it's just a breath of fresh air, in this book that I genuinely didn't like, but read very quickly because I couldn't put it down. And I did not enjoy the 87 version. This was like the one thing where like, oh, someone showed up and did something that surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I keep saying it, like, I just want it to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing about it that kind of struck me is that it really seemed like it really seemed like the people who were making it wanted to lean into the ambiguity of the grandmother, where she's not this like out and out evil character.
Yeah.
Which is clearly what they were doing with Louise Fletcher in the 1987 one.
Yeah.
She is just an imposing figure. She's evil. She's kind of one note. In this one, though, you actually get to know her as a person. I'm not saying you like her, but she's a character. She's
Yeah.
someone that I have the capacity to have empathy for.
Yeah.
Whereas the Louise Fletcher version was not that.
Which makes sense to do if they know that they're making all four books.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is someone who is going to get redeemed in some way, or at least not redeemed, but kind of explained.
Explained, yeah.
And you have to do that.
Yes.
I really like that. You know, I found out about the people that made it. So Kayla Alpert's the one that wrote it. This was directed by Deborah Chow, who has done a ton of TV. She's a real up-and-comer, and I didn't know this. This is not going to be relevant for our entire audience, but it was relevant for me. She is rising through the ranks in the world of Star Wars right now. She directed 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, and there's an Obi-Wan Kenobi show they're going to make with Ewan McGregor. She is the sole director of the entire series.
Neat.
And by all accounts, she is really, really cool.
Funnily enough, stories about women are good when they're written and directed by women.
Yeah. Or at least better.
Strangely, they're better.
I still don't know if this is good.
Everything's better with women in charge. That's what I'm trying to say.
It had some aspects that were good.
Yes.
But I don't know. What else struck you about this one?
Oh, I mean, if I can do, if we're doing like roses and thorns, like I can tell you my biggest thorn. That fucking swan bed. They clearly had a budget because they're doing 4 movies. They can't make a swan bed. It's not good. It's not good enough. The swan bed's not good enough.
I was positive this was the one that's just like a bed with like a swan in relief on it.
Now I don't remember. I feel like they were actually kind of similar, both in the 2 movies.
It is hard to tell 2 movies apart when they like literally are the exact same story and they only take place in 2 locations.
Yeah.
It's like 2 rooms and then they go to another room for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think Jeremy's probably going to cut out a lot of our like sort of off mic disagreements about what thing happened in what version. We also watched them 2 nights in a row, so they're like kind of twisted together in our minds. But suffice it to say, even without an exact description, the swan bed is a disappointment. In neither version did I get what I wanted, which was a swan bed where the head and neck of the swan are the canopy of the bed and the sides of the bed are the wings, and it's all made of feathers. That's what it's supposed to be. Swan bed. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm afraid of interrupting you right now. I'll talk about something that I was happy to see in this. Happy's a weird word. Someone decided to make an adaptation of Flowers in the Attic, and it includes incest.
Yes, although it was kind of a fade to black, and then we see them the next morning modestly wrapped up in the covers type of thing.
Sweetie, implied incest is fine.
Yeah, I guess.
I didn't need to see anything more than implied incest.
Also, Kieran Shipka, I believe, is a minor, so that I don't know how much they can actually show.
Yeah, no.
On television.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was going to argue that we needed to see any more than we actually saw.
That's fair.
But if you're going to, we've said this, if you're going to make an adaptation of Flowers in the Attic, it seems like the incest is one of the things that you need to commit to doing.
Did you feel like they were conflicted enough about the incest? I feel like they weren't super conflicted about it. They were like, well, that happened.
I think they're setting up the sequels because I think I'm making the assumption here that the idea is that the audience is on the side of Kathy and Chris being together. So if you make it as gross and kind of rapey as it is in the book, you can set the audience against them being a couple.
And you want to hold on to them for 3 more movies?
Yeah, like I if you did it exactly the way it was in the book, I don't think you would have many Kathy Chris shippers.
Yeah, that's fair. Or you might, and they might be weird people.
And you don't want that audience.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They probably don't even have TVs.
You really have to walk a really thin line with the incest in this story.
Yeah.
It has to be lurid and it has to be gross. I'm not even saying I want this. One thing that happens to me constantly when we watch these is I look at it, I don't know if you do the same thing, but like I look at it from the perspective of, okay, if I were doing it, what choices would I make? And I think it's a nice thought experiment because it's a way to look at something you haven't seen before and say like, you know what? They did something really well. They did something that I wouldn't have thought of. They did something better than I would have thought of, or I never would have done it this way. And it's a nice way to kind of work through the different choices that they make. I struggled with this episode because I would never make Flowers in the Attic. I guess I know the choices I would make, but I wouldn't make them because I would never put myself in the position to make them.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. Last episode, we did Catch-22, and that is a book that I think was said to be unfilmable, and we felt that at least one of the versions proved that it was filmable.
Somewhat yeah, it's filmable.
Filmable. And watching both of these adaptations, we kind of looked at each other from time to time and went, I think this might actually be unfilmable.
Yeah.
A couple of things that are unfilmable. They're in the attic for 3 years. They have these little twins. The little twins age by 3 years, but they don't grow and their heads get big. How can you do that on film? If you use different actors to show the passage of time, then clearly they've grown and changed. The idea is that they don't grow and change. And also, how do you make their heads big? Question 1.
Well, can I answer these at the end, or can I kind of address them as you go through them?
Whatever's easier for you.
I think there is a grand tradition in especially in horror of makeup artists really trying to innovate at every turn.
Yeah.
And I think we have this grand tradition in horror movies of having really, really innovative makeup. And I think that I go back to the fact that Wes Craven almost made a Flowers in the Attic movie. Like, I think Flowers in the Attic needs a real horror treatment. And horror makeup is a thing that it could have used.
Yeah.
And that wasn't in it. This was kind of just your standard TV makeup.
Yeah. So maybe somewhere you can find like very small 9-year-olds who can convincingly play both 5 and 9 without having to change actors and just give them creepy makeup.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. Do you know what else it makes me think of?
Yeah.
I don't know how much have we ever talked about King of the Hill on this show?
I don't know, a little bit.
How do you feel about King of the Hill?
I love King of the Hill.
Yeah, it's a great show. I remember when King of the Hill first came out, first few seasons came out, I was kind of dismissive of it. Not because I didn't think it was good, but because I didn't feel that it needed to be a cartoon. How did I get some verbal quotation marks around that?
Yeah, you did a pretty good job.
I'm just trying to work at that. So I was wrong. It absolutely needs to be a cartoon because it was pointed out to me at one point that you can't do the character of Bobby Hill in live action.
It's impossible.
You just can't do it. Bobby Hill has to be animated. It has to be that voice and that look, and you're not going to find a kid that does that. Yeah. And that's kind of I thought about that a lot while we were watching this. Like I think it might be unfilmable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I interrupted.
Okay. So there's that. I mean, as you sort of pointed out, like one might argue there is no way to do a gross rapey incest scene between minors in a way that is sympathetic.
Yeah, or legal. Like literally not legal, possibly. And that doesn't even like bring into the fact that like in the book he's just stabbed her. Remember, he stabs her with the scissors and she's like bleeding everywhere. It's awful. No, but sweetie, you don't understand. V.C. Andrews did a metaphor.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get the metaphor.
Are you sure though?
I do.
V.C. Andrews though made a metaphor and she wrote a metaphor.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah. Well, in the second book, she has like a weird period or possibly miscarriage during her dance audition.
It's like a vaginal scraping or something like that.
She like bleeds everywhere and they have to take her to the hospital. She gets a vaginal scraping.
No, they very specific. I had to find it again. They very specifically do this because this is how it was written in Wikipedia. A D&C.
Yeah.
Was a dilation and curettage.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Right.
Yeah, like if you have a miscarriage and it doesn't all come out, they have to go in and like scrape it out, or you can get like an infection.
My understanding is there's scraping and scooping involved.
There's some scraping and some scooping. Yeah. We should get Mama Dr. Jones on this.
Is that a metaphor for something?
I mean, there's a question of whether or not, like, Chris impregnated her with a demon baby when they had this one encounter.
I mean, there's still a question of whether or not V.C. Andrews is a good writer.
That's also true.
I don't think this show is going to answer that. All I'm doing is posing the question. I'm just out here asking the questions that need to be asked. What else you got?
I mean, is that not enough? I mean, clearly, apparently, the swan bed is unfilmable.
Yeah. One thing that they did that I really did appreciate. How do they try to poison the children?
Oh, donuts.
Yeah.
Poison donuts. Gotta have those donuts. And no one screams, "Eat the cookie!"
Well, one thing that I don't think I really talked about when we did 87, one of the things that I didn't appreciate is that the poisoning with the cookies, they should be donuts, was really telegraphed throughout the entire movie. Like there's close-up shots of special white powder falling on the cookies that is separate. And they're like, when Corey dies, you cut to that groundskeeper like burying him, but then they pull out and you see that there are 3 other graves.
Yeah.
And so the movie is telling you constantly like, they're trying to kill the children.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe that's not necessarily bad. I think that's a way of doing it. But if your intention is to make it a reveal, then that ruins the reveal. This one, I think, really did try to do the reveal because the donuts don't even appear until like half an hour is left in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it makes more sense for the story because she's not resolved to kill them until the will is written.
Right.
Like you're given to understand upon second viewing that like she doesn't even start giving them the donuts until the grandfather dies.
Right. Right.
And she knows what's in the will.
Right. And then when the donuts come up for the first time, the grandmother brings them, who's Ellen Burstyn, and she has actually a really great line. Her delivery of it, I really, really loved. They're like, oh my gosh, like a treat, donuts. This is amazing. And she's like, yeah, those are from your mother. I wouldn't eat them if I were you. They'll rot your teeth. Of course they do eat them. But it's like another like little glimpse into the grandmother's like humanity. She is telling them not to eat them and they do not listen.
Yeah, she's a terrible person, like objectively.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, she is keeping these children in the attic and she knows they're going to be poisoned and does nothing about it.
But at least there is a little part of her that thinks, I don't know, maybe killing kids isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But I guess here we are.
She's also complicit in like hiding the body of a child. The one child that dies.
Yeah. Oh, what did you think about Corey in this one?
Corey was like nothing.
Nothing.
Like I was worried that I was really going to love Corey and like you barely even saw his face. I wonder if they were trying to keep him in shadow because like the twins maybe didn't really look a lot like twins. So they were trying to disguise that.
I don't think it would have mattered that much because twins almost never look like twins in these kind of things.
That's another reason that this is unfilmable because all 5 members of the family really are supposed to look almost exactly alike.
Yeah.
Like the older boy and the younger boy are supposed to look alike and the older girl and the younger girl look alike and they all look like each other and they all look like their parents, all like exactly the same, blonde, blue eyes, everything. And you can't necessarily find like I know you can do a lot with makeup, but like you can't necessarily find actors that resemble each other to that degree.
I feel like here's a way that you could film this. Here's a version of Flowers in the Attic that I think would work, but it would really take the right people and they would need to have the resources to do this and also really, really fucking love Flowers in the Attic. But imagine a really creepy stop motion version of Flowers in the Attic.
Yeah, I like that. Like Coraline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they are the Dresden dolls.
Yeah.
And like you could actually do that more, like be very literal with it. I don't mean so literal that they're actually like dolls moving around, but in stop motion, you can evoke that. And I'm imagining now a very creepy, a little more abstract version of Flowers in the Attic. But it's the kind of thing where I don't think many studios would finance something that is stop motion but involves like underage incest.
Yeah.
So it would have to be like self-financed.
Ugh.
You would need the people who have, again, the means, the passion, and the money.
And the time.
And the time to do this.
So what you're saying is someone needs to do it for their MFA film senior thesis.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I think that's what it would have to be.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm imagining like Wes Anderson, but creepy. That kind of thing. Like someone, because I feel like he can get whatever money he wants to do stop motion and the studios kind of let him do it.
Yeah.
He could get this under the radar. I just don't think he would ever want to, nor would I want him to.
No.
I don't.
Nor should he.
No, like, because most people shouldn't.
Yeah. Nor should anyone. Really, like, let's just consign it to where it lies.
I love that I read this. I'm really happy that I read Flowers in the Attic. It is such an amazing object, this book. And I've never read another book like it. It is just one of the trashiest things I've ever read. And maybe it should just be a book. Maybe it shouldn't be other things. I get why people want to do it, but like maybe it shouldn't be.
That seems fair.
I don't say this very much, but like I actually don't have much else to say about this.
That's all right. We said a lot about the book. I mean, the book is really like if you're going to choose one of these properties to sink your teeth into, like read the book.
Clearly.
For heaven's sake, read the book.
Yeah, if this I don't think anything that we've said ruins the enjoyment of reading the book.
No.
Or lack of enjoyment that you will have.
No.
Like the book is the book and it's just a hell of a thing. V.C. Andrews should be commended or committed or something.
Well, she's dead, so.
I know, but like what I'm saying is I still don't know. Is she a good writer or not? I pose the question to you, our audience. Do you want to do some quadrants?
Yes.
1987, Flowers in the Attic. Do you think they cared about the source material?
I do, because V.C. Andrews was in the movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
And she had script approval.
Do you think the producers cared about the source material?
No, probably not.
I don't think they did.
No.
I would put this right on the line because it does seem like some people involved cared and some people absolutely didn't care. And one of the things that makes the movie so bad is that they seem to be fighting each other.
Yeah.
Was it successful?
No.
2014's Flowers in the Attic. Do
Yeah.
you think they cared about the source material?
I think the writer and the director read this on the playground in middle school. I really do. I think they're of that age.
It seemed like they really wanted to do a good job.
Yes.
It seems like care was taken with this one.
Yes.
Was it successful as a Lifetime original movie?
It's a successful Lifetime original movie. I mean, I think they filmed it as best they could, given that I think we've come down on the side of this is not filmable.
You have more experience with Lifetime original movies than I do.
Yes.
It seems like this is kind of the platonic ideal of what a Lifetime original movie should be that isn't about like spousal abuse.
Or not like a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It seems like there's like 3 different types of Lifetime originals. What is it? It's like true stories, spousal abuse, and just utter lurid batshit craziness.
Yes.
And this is a really, really good version of the third thing.
Yes.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. And finally, we are on Patreon, patreon.com/AdaptCast. We've got a whole bonus show that we do that airs between episodes of Adapter Parish. We've got a great community that you can join. We wanted to create it so that we could give you extra stuff if you want to support this show. And all of your support means the world to us.
Do you want a donut?
No, I fucking don't. Fuck off. Fuck off with your donut. Fuck off.
I'm going to go get a donut.
No, fucking don't. Don't get that shit near me.
Bye.